1. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
A very good afternoon to you all, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad you've chosen to visit the prestigious Triton Museum of Art today, and I'll look forward to showing you around. But first, I would just like you to refer to the maps of the museum that you picked up on your way in. Now, where you picked up your maps is just to the left, as you enter the building outside the museum store. By the way, the store is a great place to pick up some souvenirs before you leave. Oh, and if anyone wants to leave a coat in the cloakroom, then please feel free to do so at no extra charge. It's just over there on the other side of the entrance to the museum store. Okay, so this nice spacious area we're now standing in is the Rotunda. It contains some of the museum's most striking sculptures. From here, you gain access to all the museum. Leading off from the Rotunda are the Warburton Gallery and our other large gallery that houses a permanent art collection. We'll be starting our tour actually in the permanent collection gallery, as it's the nearest of the two galleries to the entrance. We'll make our way afterwards to the other gallery I mentioned, as it's right next door. Oh, the smaller room behind the Warburton Gallery that you see on your maps is just a storage space for the museum, and access is blocked off to the public by a railing across the entrance to that area. So now, where were we? Ah, yes. After we visited those galleries, which will take us a good hour as there are so many interesting exhibits to see, we'll make our way back across the Rotunda and visit the Cowl Room. It's right at the far end of the museum, on the opposite side of the Rotunda to the Warburton and Permanent Collection galleries. It's one of the museum highlights and contains some high-quality contemporary art exhibits. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to point out the ladies' and gents' toilets earlier. They're just before you get to the Cowl Room and are adjacent to the museum store. Don't go into the room opposite the toilets. That's our staff room area and kitchen. Right, so that's all you need to know for the moment. Let's begin the tour.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Today we are going to study the typical layout of a medieval English castle. Highly fortified and with difficult access, medieval castles were impressive strongholds, designed to keep the castle's inhabitants safe and the invaders at bay. The main entrance would have been the outer gatehouse, located at the bottom right-hand corner of the diagram, just by the chapel buildings. However, even if you had entered via the outer gatehouse into the castle grounds, you would still have been outside the main part of the castle. The buildings in the outer court were not the main residential areas of the castle. These latter buildings belonged to the inner castle area and were heavily protected both by a water-filled channel known as a moat, which extended around a third of the inner part of the castle, as well as the fortified walls around the castle exterior. To enter the innermost area, you had to enter a long, narrow tunnel known as a barbican, over and directly above which the gatehouse was located. The barbican, being the only access point to the inner castle, was narrow and heavily guarded to prevent large enemy forces storming the inner castle area. The inner castle area held the main buildings around which daily life revolved. Here the Great Hall, along with the great chambers and kitchens, were located, as well as the castle bakehouse. The Great Hall was the only building with a courtyard view to the back and front. Whilst the Great Hall enjoyed a central location in the inner castle area, the great chambers and kitchen were less prominently positioned. Both of the latter buildings were located off to either side of the Great Hall. The great chambers, unlike the bakehouse, which is next to one of the towers, did not enjoy a courtyard view. Part of the exterior castle wall formed the back wall of the great chambers, as it did with the stables, located in the outer court.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2. Section 2. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
OK, ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? So, here we are at King's Cross Station. We'll be leaving from here in just over an hour to catch a tube from the underground station, so you'll have a bit of time to look around. But first things first, just so as you can get your bearings and find your way around this rather complex and confusing station, I will point out essential areas as well as points of interest. At the moment, we are standing in King's Cross Square, facing two main exit doors, one off to our left and the other off to our right. The exits lead from the main platform area, which can be accessed by several entrances, one of which is located just a bit further away to your left, although it is obscured by a wall from where we're standing. Oh, by the way, that building standing on its own, the larger, not the smaller one, on your far left is the Great Northern Hotel. The taxi rank is sandwiched between it and the left luggage office. So, before I go on to a description of the main shopping and platform areas at the other side of the station wall, I'd like to point out the most important point of all, the underground station, which is where we need to meet promptly for departure. Luckily, it's quite prominent, as it's located away from the shopping and platform area of the station. It's just over there on the corner, in between the entrance I mentioned earlier and the exit nearest to the hotel from where we're standing now. Now, for those of you who would like to grab a bite to eat or do a bit of shopping, you can enter the shopping area by that entrance door over there. It's by far the nearest entrance. You will find several clothes shops in this area, in addition to a fast food outlet. When you go in the entrance, if you go straight ahead rather than turning left into the other part of the shopping complex, you will find two buildings facing one another. Within these buildings are several shops and eating places. In the building immediately after the ticket barriers on your right, you will find that the first shop you come across is the fast food outlet, Burgerland. If you need to avail yourself of the toilet facilities, then carry straight on past Burgerland, and they're at the far end of the building. In between the toilets and the ticket office is the disabled meeting point. You will have to enter through this area in order to gain access to the toilets. If you would like to go up to the second floor, where there are one or two shops and a pizzeria, then as you enter the shopping area through the main entrance, instead of going straight ahead, you turn off to the left. The escalators are immediately on your left again. When you go up the escalators, you will see two buildings again on your left. Go past the first building, and the pizzeria is the first shop that you come to in the second building. Now, I would just like to ask, are there any Harry Potter fans with us today? Ah, good. Yes, I see several hands raised. Well, there's a treat in store for you if you go to the far end of the second building and take the escalator down again to the ground floor. As you reach the bottom of the escalator, turn right and carry on walking, keeping the ticket barrier on your left all the time. Don't turn off left, but carry on walking until you find yourself up against the station wall. This is the famous Platform 9 3/4, immortalised by J.K. Rowling in her Harry Potter books. You'll see half a trolley embedded in the wall to mark the spot. So, those are the main things to do and see. I hope you enjoy yourselves, but please meet me at the underground entrance promptly for departure. Don't be tempted to board the Hogwarts Express on Platform 9 3/4.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
What has been accomplished to date in the city's regeneration has been nothing short of amazing. Yet we hope to set a new benchmark for developments in Birmingham. The Cube will bring forward a new standard of architecture and a building which will not only be Birmingham's most striking waterside location, but also one which is identifiable around the world. The Cube breaks all the boundaries of what has been achieved in Birmingham so far. The finished Cube will be a mixed-use building. It will house the city's first rooftop restaurant with panoramic views, whilst a boutique hotel and residential apartments below will feature internal views over the twisting atrium. Further down, high-specification Grade A office space is planned, with more exclusive retail and waterside restaurants at the base. The mailbox has already raised the bar in the quality and calibre of our architecture, and the retail offerings, worldwide brand names, and stylish restaurants have given Birmingham a contemporary profile, rivaling the capitals of Europe. From the outset, the Cube's design team sought to create a new landmark building for Birmingham, which fits into its context and which draws people in. Lined with coloured glass and with an exterior clad in shimmering metal fretwork, the Cube has visible links to Birmingham's heritage in engineering and jewellery manufacture. It was essential that the building created a strong visual presence, immediately identifiable as a gateway to the canal and city centre area to the north. Our city is a city of the future, and as a futuristic building with phenomenal foresight in style and design, The cube is indicative of our plans in how we see Birmingham developing. The cube will help to elevate us onto a global stage. Now, let's go and have a look at the progress of the entrance gateway.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers.